You guys look so good. Well, it's nice to be with you.
No way. We're not tired.
Cypress. Butch, were they making you stand to the rear? Wait till next year.
Wait till next year. That's how.
Well, it's pretty good.
It's Ron Williamson. I'm kind of the station historian, the station safety officer, among a few other things here at NAS Jacksonville. We're here tonight to dedicate a building, and I can't think of any finer person to dedicate one to than the first Blue Angels that were formed here at NAS Jacksonville, Butch Voris. A little bit of how we got to this point, I'll tell you. I kind of got involved with the history in 1988 when the station wasn't really tracking any of their history. We kind of lost some of our history, I think. And we had a base theater there that the commanding officer was giving a lecture in, and he looked up and only one light bulb was working. And he said, "Who owns this theater?" And we said, "Well, MWR, sir, but they're not showing movies anymore, so they weren't putting any money into it." And he goes, "How many safety stand-downs do you have in here?" I said, "About one a month." And he goes, "Well, congratulations, you own the building, fix it." So I said, "Thank you, sir, may I please have another?" And I decided what I wanted to do with the lobby was put some historical pictures up at the base, and then researching, we found out our 50th anniversary was approaching, and nobody had ever done anything on the history of this great base. So I decided we needed to do something and started researching and wrote a history book, and now we've just done a second one that should be out shortly. Found out that the Blue Angels were formed here, because that had kind of been forgotten, I think, a little bit. And we quickly went on the last day and were able to schedule the Blue Angels for the 50th anniversary of this station where they were born. We almost missed it. And by then I got in touch with Butch, found out he was out there in Monterey. We've been talking and communicating ever since. We email about once a week. We were able to get him back here, and really appreciate Butch coming. One of the things we found that I think was really significant only about 5 years ago is we finally found the original negatives of the Blue Angels' very first air show at Craig Field. Nobody thought any of the photos existed of the very first show. And we found some negatives and had those pictures done. And one of the things I thought would be neat to do is to take these pictures and put on their first flight of the Navy's Blue Angels and send them out to Butch and get him to sign about 25 and send them back to us for the station. We did that. We sent them out. Butch sent them back. And I was wonderfully surprised to open up this beautiful pack of pictures we had made to say first flight of the Navy's U.S. Blue Angles. So, thank you, Butch. We tore all those up except for one, and it'll be on eBay next week in case anybody's interested. All right, for further comments, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Commanding Officer of NAS Jax, Captain Turcotte.
Thank you all for coming. This is a great day. I tell you, getting to know this man over the last couple days has been an interesting event. And you guys all know what I'm talking about down there wearing blue uniforms. This morning I'm listening to the radio very innocuously. You know, what's next? We're getting some good air show press, and I hear old Butch on the radio. Boy, first I didn't know he got up that early. And he was getting interviewed. One of the very first questions, they said, "Well, you know, so you invented the Blue Angels?" And, you know, this guy has not missed a beat. And he said, "No, I didn't. Al Gore did." Can I say that, Admiral? I just did.
Just quoting.
I'll show you the picture later that we took this afternoon. What we're here to do today is to honor a man, an aviator, and a leader. And we're here to dedicate a building in his honor. And although we go around the Navy in, you know, in some bases, in some places, you can't go to a building without finding some guy's name on it, some picture. We haven't done this for a long time at NAS Jacksonville, and I can't think of a more fitting individual to dedicate our new terminal here so that people from all services can walk through and see a great American hero. And I'm not talking about Lee Iacocca. I'm not talking about the leadership of a guy like Iacocca. He's a great leader. There's a lot of other leaders out there. Good pencil pushers, good leaders, good managers, making widgets and things happen. We're dedicating a building today to a leader in the air, something that very few people do, and lead well. You don't shoot down 8 airplanes. You don't get 3 DFCs and numerous other things. You don't take a concept from a then Chief of Naval Operations and transform it into the finest flight demonstration team on the earth. You don't make that concept and transform it over years and years and years. Guys like Elwood and Blood to continue that tradition. That is the most recognized symbol of the United States Navy worldwide. And albeit named by a bar, and you know that story, that is the United States Navy. And that's why we're here today, is to dedicate this building so as people come through here, young men, young women, aviators, all of us, we can see the tradition that was passed down through the last 56 years that has instilled a sense of pride in all of us, and pride in our country, and pride in the United States Navy. Something to emulate. A leader in the air, a leader of men, and an example for all of us to follow. And Butch, I thank you very much for coming out here. I can't think of a better time and a better place to do this.
You're gonna make me cry if you don't stop.
Okay, I'm going to show this picture then. This was taken downtown today.
Thank God some things don't change.
Thank God we didn't name them the Red Hooters. Without further ado, I'd like to dedicate this building at this time to a great American hero, warrior, and leader. Gentlemen. Now, sir, if you're still talking to me, would you please come up and say a few remarks?
I'm able to stand up. That's a new step. Please sit down. Thank you, Captain. Those words.
Sorry.
Pretty hard to accept. Pretty hard to. I put my knickers on just like everybody else. And I'm here, totally in awe and honored, but not just in my name as being the first blue. This is, when I look at this, I look at all the Blue Angels, every one of them, from myself through 1946, through today's team and those that will follow. We have a saying, once a blue, always a blue. It's just that you've flown prior to now, or are flying now, or will fly sometime in the future. The pride runs so deep that I don't think people can understand how one can feel having done this. And when you look back at the 54 years, and I remember when I got the nod to do this, and my wife doesn't like this. I knew the Admiral's daughter, but not that intimately to get this job, so. But I was selected, and I was very proud of it. I was available. I like to fly upside down as right side up, and it wasn't because of my hairdo or anything like that. But it gave me a chance, and we got absolutely no instructions. None. There was when an admiral makes a suggestion, you know what it is? That's an order where I come from. He said, stay out of sight. And I think the reason they did that, so our practice area was out over the woods out here where there are alligators, swamps, in case we, tried to put 3 or 4 airplanes where only one should be, that the evidence would be eaten by alligators and the Navy wouldn't have to cover it up. They'd had enough other things to cover up. Well, we picked the old F6F5 a wartime airplane. It's the one that I'd flown during the war, and it shot down a couple airplanes in. If it hadn't have been for that, the Ironworks machine, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead. Picked the pilots that I knew and trust. This whole thing, as you people know in the blue suits, runs on trust. Absolutely trust and confidence. If that isn't there, you have absolutely nothing, and I mean zero. We've seen it at times when it hasn't been that way, and we've seen the results. Hopefully they'll never occur again. So I picked the pilots, picked the people, and I was able to do this before anyone else was ordered in, and I was able to go out by myself and develop the routine as I saw it, and then see what the boys would think of it when we got them aboard, one by one, no different than you do today. As you know, one by one, bring them in, bring them on in, bring them on in. And as we went ahead and did it, the routine, now, I knew I wasn't selected to have a team that was going to be run second to the Army Air Corps at that time, or the Air Force later on, and it wasn't what the CNO expected out of me. So I figured that we better do something that anybody else would be smart enough not to do. We went into blind rolls. We re-rolled both on the axis of the formation. We have another one that was, it sort of caused you to wet your knickers now and then. And this was roll on the individual axis of the airplane, which you do today. You do a little bit faster. But with that big R-2800 out there, it took a lot of leg and stick work and prayer to get it around without running into each other. But we worked up a 17-minute routine because we could, unlike the jets, we didn't need quite the turning rate, didn't have the turning radius at the end of the field. We could whip it through and keep it inside of about 8,000 feet by just plain old pull, grunt, and pray, whatever you do up there. And we did all of this in secret, so to speak. So nobody knew that this was coming. We were all, I was a bachelor, everybody was going to be a bachelor. I wanted their minds 24 hours a day, and I got them. And finally, I was asked, when are you going to have your people ready where we can take a look at it? No one had seen it. And this is by at one time, the Chief of Naval Air Advanced Training was headquartered here, and so they were my operational bosses. The station was my administrative and support boss. And so we went to an outlying field. What was it, Hurlong? Was the one out here, something like that. Yeah. And I remember Commander Smith, Dan Smith, quite a Navy guy. He says, I'll fly a plane out there and I'll leave the engine running. You come out, call me when you're ready. So we did. We did our 17 minutes of pull and grunt. And all he said was, I said, I'm through. He says, I'll see you back on the field. We got back there, and he got out of his airplane. I got him on, walked over to him, and we thought we had a pretty good show. You know what his words were, and if you'll excuse this, Zaman Senior here, you crazy sons of bitches, you're going to kill yourselves. Exact words. But I like it. I like it. I'm going to recommend that the Admiral see it tomorrow. So they set up about, after the field was closed down for normal operation, around 5:30. The Admiral was out there with all his spear carriers and so forth, and all lined up and down the mat. And we went out and did our thing. And he liked it. So now we're past 2 stars. So we're going to be bounced over to Pensacola for 3 stars. Admiral Wagner, Chief of Naval Air Training, he had the whole bag. So we go on over there, and he's got all his boys. I think there are about 3 or 4 admirals and a bunch of captains, and they're going to pass judgment on us. So up we go. We had a little combat with the war over recently, so we had a combat routine. We had an SNJ painted yellow with big red meatballs on it, supposedly a Japanese Zero. And we'd work in a real tight routine. It was only about a minute and a half. They had smoke bombs on it. We had blank 30 calibers in the SNJ gun. And in the back seat, in fact, I heard from him just the other day, Bob Boudreaux, the crew chief for that plane, had a sawdust and sand-filled dummy with a chest pack on it and a static line to the airplane. So we do the show, and we get to the midpoint where we're going to do this combat routine, and up he goes, the airplane, you know, the kind of smoke is going, and out drops the dummy with a chute, and a static line breaks. And comes down not far in front of the Admiral. It's going to be the shortest history of any demonstration unit. And I said, oh my God, I just fully expected to be called out of the air right then. Nobody said anything, and Mom didn't raise a stupid guy. Quickly went into the rest of the maneuvers, and we got through them, landed, and I got a picture of this. I'm down on one knee in front of this line of chairs in front of the Admiral Wang and his 3-star, and he's looking at the ground. He isn't looking up, doesn't he? And I'm down on a knee. He looked up at me. Says, I have one suggestion for us. Yes, sir. Move it out a little further on the field. But he says, I'm going to the Chief of Naval Operations and then to the Secretary of the Navy, and tell them you're ready for public demonstration. And so that was it. We got through that, and did we ever surprise the Army Air Corps? I'm out of time. I got to tell you.
Sure time.
Let's see. We did a show for Admiral Nimitz. Well, he was our great benefactor, the great white father in Washington. We showed Corpus Christi along the waterfront. That went well. Kind of paid him back for saying, hey, go ahead and do this. We ended up, where were we? Des Moines, Iowa. We went out into places that I never knew existed except from high school history. Des Moines, Ottumwa, Keokuk, and places where the Navy carriers hadn't spent much time. So, that was to bring naval aviation back after the war to those who were not so familiar with it. So we're going to stop at Kansas City. We're going to stay at the Muehlbacher, and there's an airport, I think it's called Fairfax Airport, and there's a little moat around by the river and all of that. And I read NOTAMs just like any other aviator. And apparently there was a NOTAM that said, you ain't going to land because we're going to have an air show. And I didn't know this, so I called, 10 miles out, whatever, reporting a Navy ump with forward landing instructions. Please be advised the field is closed, air show, and they quoted me the NOTAM number, which didn't mean much to me anyway. And I said, we are the Navy's flight exhibition team. We won. We came back, we have talked to the General so-and-so. He says he will agree, he'll let you land if you'll fly. Oh boy, we got a setup made. Okay, so we landed. And the General met us. And he said, he thought had a bunch of patsies on his hand. He's ready to go to show the Navy. So they had a flock of at that time, 51s. It looked like a bunch of geese and going in all directions. They just, kind of a pickup show. So came our time, real narrow runways. So we flew 3 at the time because of the blind rolls. And I guess we'd had a little celebration night for it. Not that this had anything to do with it. The runways were real narrow. I'll tell you, the lads on the wing didn't have 6 inches between that and dirt. So I said, I've got to keep this right down the center. And as we're going down, taking off, I see Cassidy on my left side departing. Departing more. And I'm looking, and I'm still, taking off, and I see he's on line. He's going to hit the tetrahedron out there. Oh, what a way, how we're really going to sink the Army Air Corps or something. Well, he missed it. He turned around, taxi caught up with us in the air, and we put on probably the best 17 minutes we'd ever put on in our life. The General was mad. I've been called names, but you have misled us. I said, why, sir? You didn't tell me what you were. I said, the flight exhibition team. And we parted not real smiley at each other. The next morning, in the Kansas City Star, Navy sinks Army Air Corps. Oh, we're winning. Well, you'll never have excellence without competition. Nope, you'll never peak. You balance this whole thing. I hear I'm preaching to the choir and they're watching this like I'm saying something they don't know. When you do something, you balance risk versus return. Whether you be in business or you're commanding the region or the air station, risk versus return. You pump the risk up to get the maximum return, the maximum acceptable risk, not stupid risk, acceptable risk. And then you hope your competition does well and you push a little harder, but you stay ahead of them, once ahead, just like selling something. Once you got a client, keep them. We keep that position of number one. And I think we did. I know we did. Each year the bar has raised another notch, and I'm real proud to see you done that, if not 2 notches. I'm looking forward to the next group, and they'll do the same thing. Now, where did we get the name for this team? A very senior officer. I'm always in trouble with senior officers. I haven't had too many speeches today. I hadn't repeated it here. I had one downtown. We ran a contest to name this team, and it was a flight exhibition team, and that's not quite it. And so we had a contest, the submission of names, and we got hundreds of them. And I got nothing that we liked. I got a call from the staff and went up there, Captain Gettner. He says, "How you doing on naming it, Butch?" And I said, "We really haven't seen too much." He said, "I just looked over that list. I didn't even know he had it. This one here, the Navy Blue Lancers. What do you think of that?" You know, how do you say it's shitty, but with a smile on your face, it's awesome. He says, "Well, you go back down and you get your boys together, and I'm sure that they'll go along with you on this." "Yes, sir." And so I leave. I go back on down. They said, "Oh, we got a hell of a problem. We're going to be the Navy Blue Answers. You know, might as well be the Pink Ladybugs or something." But we were going to New York, and the night before over I looked up my old room, 141 in the old BOQ. That was my ready room.
Still has beer stains on the floor, sir.
Martinis. We very seldom drank them. Not with flying. Anyhow, we've gone through the New Yorker magazines. You know, when you put your airplanes flying all day makes Johnny a doughboy. He's got to refuel at night. So we're going to go into Manhattan and get prepared for Manhattan, and
It's not a martini.
my voice won't get any better just the way it is. Thank you, though. No, that tastes good. And Wick, my number 2 man, had a glass of olive soup, and we're relaxed thinking about New York, and he all of a sudden screamed out, "I've got it, I've got it." I said, "What do you got?" "The Blue Angels." He ran across the listing, the Blue Angel nightclub, which was a big thing in its day up there. And geez, I said, "That sounds great, outstanding. What are we going to do about Captain Gettner's suggestion that Well, we went off to a show in Omaha. We had about 300,000. It's a big show and so forth. And by that time, we had earned the respect of the aviation press, Aviation Week and such, and allowed that we had a bit of a dilemma. They said, "Well, maybe we can help you." So when the show was over, I think it was 3 days, the dispatches flowed, you know, we did well, and we got some well-dones, and the newspapers read, "Navy's Blue Angels outperform everybody else," or whatever they say. And I said, "Oh, now I got to fly back home." So I get home, and I'm summoned immediately to the staff to explain it. And I said, "Well, I heard the press talking. Look at those guys. It's like angels, blue angels." And he didn't want to listen anymore. He says, "Come on, Boris, get out of here. I've had enough." But it's stuck. It's stuck. One other thing I want to talk about the air station. Just you'll listen to that, won't you? Anytime. We went back and putting these airplanes together. We've got these big old Hellcats. O&R here, which preceded MADEP, and whatever came in between. It's a marvelous organization. This whole station, of all the stations I've been on, there isn't a finer air station for support and to be paced on. And I noticed today in downtown and with the Admiral and with the Captain, the relationship with the committee, it's just, the whole thing is a homogeneous piece of whipped cream. It's just nice. And so they modified our airplanes, put the 50 pounds of lead on the hook and all the things to compensate for the guns going out. And beautiful gold, U.S. Navy under the wings, U.S. Navy inside tail numbers. Not more than maybe 2 to 3 years ago, I get a call from a person who had been the painter at O&R. And he said, Captain, where did you ever, how were you able to get all the gold, what do you call it?
Gold leaf.
Gold leaf, yeah. On all those airplanes, all these, they had laid on gold leaf. You know, talk about $8,000 potty seats. They had a scandal. I noticed it was it looked like real gold, and I hadn't seen any paint like that. But that's what we had, gold leaf. Well, and that's the way the whole place treated us all the way around. It was just a tremendous support, and I went to another station the second time I had the team. And about the first introduction was to fill out your fitness reports on your boys. It came real soon. Yes, sir, I did. Sent them on up chain of command to the captain. And I'll tell you, not like our captain here. Sent them back and told me to read the instructions on the preparation, submission of fitness reports. I don't read that stuff. I'm just going to write the report, you know, therefore. I'm not going to, am I going to admit that I've chosen some guy that's a bum and isn't fit to be on the team? And I got called up and read the riot act and asked me to sit down, no coffee, no nothing. He says, go back down and resubmit in accordance with. I won't mention his name. And he directed me to mark the team on the bell curve. I had one unsat pilot. So I said, which one of you wants to be unsat? Well, I did a backdoor move on the admiral. And he came in from Washington, and I briefed the chief of staff, and we got that matter resolved. But things like that on a station that thought we were a bunch of hot rods, and, you know, maybe we won't even fit on the bell curve, be some other, maybe a dummy curve or something. But I just want to say you've got a great air station. Thank you for having us. Everyone, thank you very much.
One final thing, just like a ship christening, so that we seal this lasts forever. Monsignor, I'd like you to come up and bless the building and bless our dear the man that we dedicate this to. Thank you.
I asked the skipper if he wanted me to go around the building with holy water. And he says, no, he says the saltiness of Captain Voris would be enough to hasten God's blessing.
We only knew.
So let us bow our heads in prayer. Almighty God, we give you thanks for all our sailors and Marines who today, even now, patiently yet faithfully stand the watch. For our wounded and fallen shipmates of the USS Cole, and for all the thousands upon thousands of brave men and women who had nobly laid down their lives in the service of our country. Send your blessing upon this building, we pray, as we dedicate it in honor of Captain Roy M. Butch Voris, who served our nation with distinction during a period of great peril for America and for the world. May this building serve for all as an enduring witness and testimony to the gallant and faithful service of Captain Voris, the creator of the Blue Angels, and of all the men who proudly and skillfully flew with him. May we always exalt in the memory of their military valor and heroism as we recommit ourselves to the mission of the United States Navy, which is to protect the peace and freedom of our country and of the whole world. Lord, guard and guide those who fly and those who on the ocean ply. Be with our troops upon the land and all who for our country stand. Be with these guardians day and night, and may their trust be in thy might. This we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. It took me the Blue Angels, and that concludes the ceremony there. Thank you.